Welcome to my runcast. How pretty. So, I've changed my schedule, running in the mornings. It's fucking cold. It's really cold. Cold season, happily, is very, very short in Pattaya. It's actually really cold for about 2 weeks. But ooh, we're in it right now. An interesting thing about doing these runcasts is that when I was doing them, when I was running home from the gym, it's after like a full day. So I had lots of thoughts about what had happened that day, or things that had been like that had jumped into my mind or I was reminded of or whatever. And so there were lots of like topics. I was like, oh, I gotta talk about that. In the morning, I'm not thinking fucking anything. I'm listening to a book and no thoughts in there. Very, very smooth brain in the morning. But something that I've been thinking about lately that kind of makes sense to talk about in the morning, because you're kind of like setting up how you're going to think for the rest of the day as opposed to like how you're thinking at the end of the day, is Kevin and I were watching Hot Ones, which is a show in which celebrities are interviewed while eating progressively hotter sauces on like chicken wings. And I think it's 10. We're watching the one with Ariana Grande, and she's totally like unfazed by these sauces, which is kind of amazing, but also totally indicative of her like mentality. And I don't know, you can hear how much work she's done in therapy in the way that she talks, which is really kind of cool. But something that Kevin kept mentioning while we were watching it is how positive she is. Like, she just turns everything into something really amazingly positive. And I am in therapy, but I'm in a different kind of therapy than what she does. I'm in analysis, like Jungian analysis. My therapist was asking me to kind of like take an inventory of like what my goals are, whether we're achieving them, what we should aim for now, blah, blah, blah. And I was kind of like, while watching this, I was kind of like, I'd like to be like that. Like, I'd like to not have to take so many steps, like to not have so much extra footwork to do to get to my mind working towards positive thoughts. Like, it's like being right-handed versus ambidextrous versus like really, really being right-handed and trying to write with your left hand. Like, I'm closer to ambidextrous now, where I do think positive things, but I'm strongly right-handed in the sense of that, like, I think kind of harshly about myself and negatively and all of these things. I have a lot of anxiety, all this stuff. So it takes multiple steps for me to get to the kind of positivity that she was exhibiting, that we were both kind of in awe of. And something that I realized about her expression is that it's gratitude. Like, it's gratitude. And I think that just framing things as positivity can be erroneous, and that's not necessarily what it is. It's not like, I'll just give the example of what I'm actually talking about. So last week I was feeling really shit, like physically, emotionally, mentally. I was just like, nothing was good. And instead of kind of like going to like replace all of those thoughts, to be like, instead of thinking I feel shitty, my body is so tired, my mind is so tired, blah blah blah, and replacing that all with positive thoughts, I thought about truly, like honestly, elements of that I'm grateful for, that are things like, I'm grateful that my I feel shit is still functional. Like, I can still train when I feel really bad, or when my body feels terrible, or any of these things. I can still function, like I can get out of bed. That's a positive thing. I'm really grateful for that, because there are people for whom that's not true. Also, I'm grateful that my body tells me, like my mind can tell me, my body can tell me that I need to slow down a little bit. It hasn't always been like that. There have been times where like signals just don't work. I get myself to a certain point because there was not, the engine light going off in time. So that's a positive thing, to have your body and mind be able to signal you, and you be able to pick up those signals in order to respond to that. And then a greater degree of gratitude is that I am in a place of privilege where I can listen to that. I can slow down. I can take a day off. I can pull things back. This is a ableist situation. This is a being not a 12-year-old boy in a gym, where I actually am responsible for my own training. And so I can pull things back, but also grateful that I trust myself to pull back and know that that won't just become my new, like, now I just don't do anything anymore and I've become really lazy. I know that it's a temporary solve something, give myself some rest, slow things down, get back to an equilibrium, and then we can pump it back up. I'm grateful for all of those things. And so that kind of like gratitude, I think, is the positivity that I was seeing in this Hot Ones with Ariana Grande. And I think that that's something that I can actually learn to reach for much more easily. Like I can become more ambidextrous in that sense of seeing those things or thinking those things much faster, instead of kind of like, oh, well, I can find these things, like as a practice, finding these gratitudes and things like that. Then there's a second thing I thought about, which is about like giving yourself credit. And this one's kind of funny, which is I follow some like weightlifting or like gym, whatever, Facebook pages, and people continuously argue about whether you can include the weight of the bar or not when you're talking about your lifts. They're totally good arguments for why you would do that, is because you're lifting that weight, so you should totally include that weight. I don't actually, like I don't write it down in my book because that never changes. Like that 15-20 kilos is always there, and then what I'm putting on it is what changes. So that's what I'm writing down, is did I put 10 kilos on it, whatever. But I'm actually only writing what I put on each side, so I'm not even calculating how much I'm lifting all at once. And this can be a deficit, this can be a problem, in that I was a little bit bummed about my bench press because I was thinking in my mind I'm lifting 7.5 kilos, which is like not very impressive at all. And I had to, through a moment of realization, because Kevin said it, it's 7.5 on each side, and there's a 20 kilo bar in between. So I'm actually benching 35 kilos, which is pretty close to my weight. So that was actually way more impressive than the 7.5 kilos I was giving myself credit for. And so it's become a little bit of a reminder, funny mantra to myself, to give myself credit for hard work and stuff that I am doing, where I'm like, did you include the bar? Like, did you remember to include the weight of the bar? Because there are things that people go through all the time, do all the time. You know, you lose a fight, you whatever, and there are a lot of circumstances around it that made that a really difficult circumstance, or a really different, like it wasn't just what you were doing, there are all of these other things that were around it. And this is not making excuses. This is not these like, oh, you know, I fought badly because I had a cold 2 weeks ago, like whatever, not that. But taking into account that you did have to go through all these other things, you did have these other things on your mind. You're fighting someone who has more experience, who's bigger, who it's their hometown, like whatever. Things that if you don't make them excuse, but you do add that weight, you're like, include the weight of the bar. That I think is something that I forget to do, and is probably solid advice for you. So that's my like little remember this thing, and maybe it'll help other people. One, positivity feels more natural, and you cannot lie to yourself when it's actually phrased as gratitude. And two, don't forget to include the weight of the bar when you're looking at the overall achievement, not in what you did each day, because I actually don't write that down either, but when looking at the overall achievement, include the weight of that bar.